Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Sunday, November 10th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Northwestern game is in 6 days. It's at Wrigley Field. I don't know if you heard something about that.
Yeah.
The game against Michigan in 20 days.
It's in Columbus.
It is in Columbus, yes. 2 iconic American sports venues coming in the next couple of weeks for the Buckeyes. But Saturday they got to play in the same, I guess, iconic American sports venue, Ohio Stadium. They played a less than iconic team, the 2024 Purdue Boilermakers, and they handled their business. 45-0 Buckeyes, the final score. On the pregame show, Tony Garderman and I talked about the fact that the goal for Ohio State is you get through the game, everyone's healthy, and you have the kind of boring non-game that they talk about on College Football Final as they show a touchdown from early in the game and then they show an interesting touchdown from later in the game, and they put up the graphic and they talk about you for 23 seconds because you did exactly what you were expected to do in the big picture.
You wipe into this game even. You don't even get a setup. You don't even get a setup. Coming out of Indiana, Michigan, you wipe into this one, you get a lower third, you don't even get a full screen board.
Yeah, and it's exactly what it's going to be. You're going to see one of the first half touchdowns. You're going to see Jack Sawyer picking up a fumble forced by JT Tuimoloau, running it back for a touchdoa, and you're going to see the graphic that says 45-0 Ohio State.
Hero shot the end.
Yes, and then the game is over. And that's exactly what Ohio State needed. This was a game where Ohio State didn't need style points. Ohio State didn't need to do anything flashy. Ohio State didn't need to win the Heisman for anyone. They just needed to come in and handle their business. And they came in and handled their business.
They did, and it was a slow start, and I think there's always the fear of the slow start, but Ohio State has been a slow-starting team. Ohio State only had 4 offensive drives in the first half, scoring touchdowns on 3 of them. Will Howard did what he needed to do. I think we can still sit there and say that there are some of the same issues. His deep ball floats a little too much, and receivers have to kind of wait for it, and that when you have 3 steps on your defender and then you have to come back, it turns what should be an easy ball into a contested ball. There's not really a lot that I would complain about from the game. I mean, there's nothing that I'm going to say, oh, my God, this was just the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. But I think going into today, I said the next 8 quarters of football, it's about Ohio State just getting through them because they're very low leverage. Purdue is probably 18th out of 18 teams in the Big Ten. Northwestern is probably 16th, I don't know.
Below 15th.
Yeah. So just take care of business and, get me to the second to last week of the season and the Hoosiers, which, shouldn't really be talking ahead, but we're not on the team, so we can talk ahead.
Well, this was a game that Ohio State just needed to. This was a don't do anything stupid game. Don't get anyone hurt and don't do anything stupid. And there was a moment where I think Ryan Day's heart was probably in his throat, where Carson Hinsman's laying on the field and not looking like he's having a real good time. It looked like he was in some significant pain down on the field and got kind of helped off the field, and then after halftime came back in and was fine. And so I think everyone probably just kind of wiped the sweat off their brow and said, whew, that was a close call. Because, boy, that's the one spot where they really, truly cannot lose anyone else.
There were already concerns going into the season. Do they have 5 linemen? And then they find their 5, and then Josh Simmons gets hurt, and then we go through the next week, and Zen Mahalski is out there at tackle, and it probably is not looking right, but then he gets hurt. You don't want anybody getting hurt, obviously, and he gets hurt, and he hasn't played for a couple of weeks. So then they find the configuration with Carson Hinsman at guard, kicking Donovan Jackson out to tackle. It's working. This is all great, and then they have to take a stoppage because Hinsman's down on the ground, obvious discomfort. He tweeted something about, thank God about the knee brace. So he seems to be in good spirits. Let's see what he's like tomorrow when the adrenaline wears off and all of that's there. I think the knee brace should do a lot to protect him there. But, that would have been a very quick way to derail, a lot of positive feelings.
Yeah, and he had, if they let him go back out there, it's not a massive structural issue. Maybe it'll be sore. Maybe you sit next week, but we have no idea. But the worst case scenario was off the table when I saw him sitting on the bench and not in the injury tent or on the cart on the way up to the locker room before halftime. So that was kind of a okay. the worst case scenario is now not part of this conversation. And then for him to be back out there, obviously, was tremendously good news for Ohio State. Something else that was tremendously good news for Ohio State, the defense continues to look pretty solid. Purdue had, on the opening drive, had a couple plays where they picked up some yardage, and they had a long drive that led to a missed field goal. But really, Ohio State, for the most part, 4 plays, 18 yards, 4 plays, -4 yards, 11 for 72, that was a field goal attempt, 13 for 34, that one ended on downs, 2 plays were 8 yards before the half, 6 plays, 53 yards, ended with an interception, 1 play, -14 yards, ended with a fumble, back-to-back drives with a turnover forced, 3 plays, 5 yards, 9 plays, 55 yards, another missed field goal, 3 plays, -5 yards, and then 5:28 at the end, ending on downs. It was a game where Ohio State showed some different stuff. It felt like they were just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to a certain degree. Lots of mixing and matching of personnel, lots of different lineups and schemes and all that kind of stuff. But on the whole, anytime the defense pitches a shutout, you really have to probably kind of go, defense did its job.
Yeah, but I think people are going to look at the couple of long drives, the ones that ended in field goal misses, and be like, well, that was just entirely too much yardage here. We're not expecting Purdue to cross the 50-yard line. Well, that, a little much there. I did predict a shutout, which, I have hurt my shoulder patting myself on the back with it. But, beyond that, Purdue did some things in there that I don't think that you're going to see Indiana or Michigan really try to hang their hat on to be competitive in the game. I think, Purdue was taking kind of what was there, and for everything Ohio State did on defense, there were a couple times where it just seemed like they could not bring Devin Mockabee or bring whoever was carrying the ball down. And that's, still you want to be playing your best ball in November, but it's very early November at this point. You still have 2 major games. Say what you will about the team up north, and if you think that's a major game or not, I guarantee you every Ohio State fan I'm talking to is feeling that way, no matter how inept that offense is. But there were a lot of little tweaks that were there. I mean, we saw the jack. We saw mixing and matching. We saw Edric Houston get the start because no Tyleik Williams. I think they put a lot of things on tape. I think they were able to play a lot of bodies. I think that you follow that up with Northwestern. I think you can do a lot of that to a certain extent, but not at risk for getting your normal routine out of routine. You've got to make sure that when you're in that game and then you start early against Indiana in a couple of weeks, that you're not spending a couple of series trying to figure out what's up and what's down and find yourself, with 14 on their side of the scoreboard.
Yeah, Indiana, the next time Ohio State plays a team from the state of Indiana, they're going to have much less margin for error. The Hoosiers, as we are recording this, are still playing about halftime against Michigan, but that's a team that can threaten you. It never for a moment felt like Purdue was legitimately threatening Ohio State at any point of that game.
No, I was concerned about them scoring any points because not that we have any wagers going on our bold predictions, or on our score predictions, but I wanted to be right there because yes, Ohio State has pitched a shutout already this season, but I think, and I put it in tail of the tape, I believe, 2018 was the last shutout that Ohio State had pitched against a Big Ten opponent.
Yeah.
I believe it was Rutgers, and we're talking half a dozen years there. So yeah. It's been a while, and I think that everybody comes out of this game being like, I'm cool, which is very different than the way that fans had felt the previous couple of weeks, minus Penn State, where I think everybody was just happy to get the win.
Yeah, and Will Howard, another solid day. This is the most Will Howard line you can really imagine. 21-26, 81% completions, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not enormous numbers. Solid. No picks. No fumbles. Just handled his business. Nothing exciting. But there's also, he underthrew the one to the deep ball to Carnell Tate, and he missed a read here. It feels like every game is, Will Howard's been really solid. Not perfect, but really solid on the whole. Is he the single best quarterback in the entire universe? Probably not. You would love to see him overthrow a deep ball once and not underthrow the deep ball over and over and over again. But it feels like Will Howard this was another day where Will Howard did exactly what Ohio State needed Will Howard to do.
And throw a rushing touchdown in there, too. Sack adjusted. He has a grand total of 1 yard rushing, but that's not the case. That he did get out there and get that touchdown. I believe it was the first touchdown of the game for the Buckeyes. And he's going to do what he's going to do. And, to go to a sport that's near and dear to Tom's heart, his plus-minus is definitely a plus. I mean, because if it were like, well, he did 3 great things and he did 4 bad things, then that would be a minus for those who are not familiar with the statistic. But he's got a good plus minus in my opinion.
Yeah, he has just sort of handled what they needed him to do. He has been exactly what they needed at that quarterback position this year. You saw Devin Brown, you saw Julian Sayin at the end of the games, not as long as you maybe expected to see them, but they both got a few reps at the end of the game. We should briefly mention the special teams, because the special teams have gotten a lot of grief over the last couple of years, and there have been missed field goals.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, and certainly rightfully so in a lot of cases. There have been missed field goals. There have been botched fake punts and all that kind of stuff over the last few years. But it has felt like whenever you noticed the special teams doing something, it was always something negative. It was just, yes, you're supposed to make your PATs. Yes, you're supposed to fair catch your punts and not fumble them, like that kind of stuff. They've done the basic stuff, but it hadn't really gone much beyond that. They hadn't made a significant play on special teams, it felt like, in a couple of years. That all changed in the first quarter. Ohio State gets a stop, gets the ball, is forced to punt, gets the ball back, or Indiana gets the ball back, or not Indiana, Purdue gets the ball back, Ohio State gets a stop, and then Ohio State on special teams makes a play that you do notice for a very good reason.
Yeah, Caden Curry got the block. There were several guys in there. There was also Mitchell Melton. And then somebody wearing 48, which was a no-name jersey, so I'm not sure who that was, but they get it. They fall on the ball. They have to sit there and go a real short drive to be able to punch it in, which they do. And it really goes against what I've had to say and tell the tape through the last, couple of years. Yeah, and here's special teams, and we will talk about it, but there's no real upside here whatsoever, so I don't know what to tell you. Tom is looking to see.
I'm zooming in on number 48. That might be, I don't know. I think I'm going to guess that's one of the guys who should be wearing number 11. That might be Brandon Innes or
that's
CJ
a little
Hicks.
thick to be Innes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but yeah, usually they'll put that number 48 jersey on someone so you don't have a duplicate number. So that's why I was thinking Brandon Ennis 11, CJ Hicks 11.
I saw a game on Friday night where a team got flagged for a double number.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, straight to jail.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the kind of silly mistake that you've seen from Ohio State special teams a bunch over the last few years. Didn't make that mistake. You made a big play that really sort of, it wasn't like Purdue was in control of the game, but Purdue wasn't losing the game yet, and then boom, you make a play that just kind of kicks the offense into gear, and they go on to win. So Ohio State ends up winning 45-0. Now, only 3 regular season games left. We are 3/4 of the way through the college football regular season. That is nuts.
And there could be 11 million games left in the playoffs.
Yeah, there could be. We'll file that under good problems to have.
Yes,
but,
first world.
Yeah, but 3 more games left for the Buckeyes, starting next weekend in Chicago, not Evanston, in Chicago, Wrigley Field, Buckeyes and Northwestern kicking off at noon. That will be a Big Ten Network game. We will be there. We'll be there Friday night. We will be there Saturday. I can't wait. I am really looking forward to this game. This is one that we've had kind of circled on the schedule. A lot of times you have the game circled on schedule because, it's Michigan, it's Penn State. This is, the Northwestern portion is not the portion that's circled. The at Wrigley Field is the portion that's circled.
Only location. That's the only thing that we really care about. It should be a good time. I mean, as we've talked about in the past, Ohio State probably is never going to play in the Pinstripe Bowl, probably never going to play in the Fenway Bowl. I highly doubt that either of those will be venues for the college football playoff at any point. So you better soak it in while you have an opportunity to be able to go and do a unique opportunity like this. I mean, obviously, people are going to have their concerns about the dimensions of the out-of-bounds areas, and yes, you're probably going to need to walk that. You probably don't want to sit there and lead a receiver into a bad corner, but it is what it is. We talked about it on the post-game show. Nebraska has a tight corner like that. Oklahoma State has a couple of tight corners like that. It's not as if that is not something else that's out there, and they managed to survive. So just go with it.
Yeah, this is going to be something that sometimes guys get hurt. That happens on every field in the world. They have done a lot to improve Wrigley Field and make it more friendly for football over the last few years. I just was pulling up tickets right now just to see what the secondary market tickets are right now. And Upper Deck on the first base side, which is going to be along the sideline, you can get in with fees on some of the secondary sites for under $200. So
not as bad as I would have expected.
No, definitely not as bad as I was expecting. And the tickets on the Upper Deck behind the end zone, which would be down the third baseline, $129 is your get-in price. So if you're thinking about it,
do it.
Do it. Yeah, this feels like one where Ohio State's going to go to different stadiums a bunch. This is one they're not going to go to. So if you are a person for whom Wrigley Field is like, oh, I remember watching Cubs games on WGN as a kid, this is going to be a memorable one.
Check out the kid in the sombrero.
The Ohio State Purdue game is one that I think 3 weeks from now everyone's going to be hard pressed to remember more than 3 plays from that game. Just like
it's going to be deleted off my DVR by Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be deleted off of a lot of people's mental DVRs, maybe even before that. The Northwestern game, playing at Wrigley Field, like, okay. I've been to a bunch of games at Northwestern. I remember the one that they lost in 2004. I remember the one in 2022 where it was 80-mile-an-hour winds. There's a lot that are kind of like, I don't know, they won.
Yeah.
I can tell you nothing about that game. This will be one you remember. So if you are thinking about it, maybe make the trip. Should be a fun trip. Then Indiana, then Michigan, and then potentially a Big Ten championship game after that. And then after that, well, we'll see.
Let's get nuts.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun end to the football season in Columbus, Ohio, and around college football in the first year of the 12-team college football playoff. It means it would be a great time to become a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Right now we are running a special, just $4.99 for your first month. Get access to our full team of insiders. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team. Mark covering recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well, making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.